Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Matt, because as we all know, it's been incredible over the last few years, the amount of scams that are out there. And I feel like there's just nothing more heartbreaking than hearing about a senior who has worked their whole lives and then been swindled out of a substantial amount of money. So what are some of the statistics on how much money specifically seniors are losing annually to scams?
Yeah, so we'll start back in, so I had to do some digging on this, and great question. So first of all, we talked about, like, everybody on the stage was, this is how you're going to accumulate the wealth and protect the wealth, but outside of that, you got fraudsters that are trying to get in there, right? The numbers of generational wealth that's leaving this country is staggering. So if we just look back to 2023, there was 10 billion with a B, 10 billion in losses that were reported from scams. Now that's, if we get into a little later, we'll talk about the reporting on it and how we encourage folks to report these scams and these frauds. But last year, it increased to 12.5 billion. That's a 25% increase, right? So you're talking year over year. This is not going to slow down, right? The fraudsters are knowing that Americans have saved and accumulated all this money. Hopefully you're working with Sherry on stage here to accumulate all this money, but we want to protect it, right? So that's kind of diving into some of the next things. So the statistics on folks that are over 70, they're losing about $1,000 a month to scams, right? So think about that. If you have enough discretionary income, can you afford to lose $1,000 a month to scammers? I hope the answer is no. And if it is yes, you're not just funding a scammer, you're funding some type of evil, right? That those scams go to fund a variety of things we won't get into, but drug trafficking, human trafficking, drug trade, you name it, they're funding that. So some of the most common scams that we're seeing out there targeting seniors are imposter scams, online shopping scams, and investment scams. With investment scams usually being the most lucrative for these fraudsters, because I mean, if they have a bucket of money over here that's got $1,000 in it, and they got a bucket of money over here for $10,000, they're going for the $10,000 one, right? Those are really some quick stats on it.
Hey Matt, and this wasn't on your question, but can you kind of just talk a little bit about what would one of those investment scams look like?
Sure. So investment scams are you're given an opportunity. So depending on how they can contact you in a variety of ways, whether it's somebody you know in person, whether it's an email, a text, however you got contacted. They got this great opportunity. It might be crypto related. It might be, hey, we have this business opportunity where you're investing on the ground floor of this upstart company, right? But we're not going to go through the traditional stock market or buying through a broker. This is on the ground level, so we're going to need some cash up front. Those are the type of things they're doing. If it's too good to be true, so some of the things that I talk about it here, if the opportunity is too good to be true, look into it, right? There's a term, when I was in the military, there's a term called bunker buddy, right? Anybody in here familiar with the term bunker buddy? Show hands, maybe a couple. So a bunker buddy doesn't have to be somebody who's in the bunker with you. It's somebody that you just bounce your ideas off. Somebody that, hey, I got this random text message or I got this email for this opportunity. Would you take a look at this and tell me, does this make sense? Am I missing something? That's your bunker buddy. So we encourage people to check with their bunker buddies on these things. Reach out to a family or friend. It could be a family member, it could be your grandson. He's looking at this going, Grandma, come on, this is, we all know this is a scam. You're falling for this, right? But the investment scams in and of themselves, it's when people say, I need $10,000 for startup, for the startup opportunity, for startup costs, or I need $20,000, $30,000. That's where these fraudsters are getting those big dollar big ticket items out.
It's frustrating though, because I feel like I'm fairly discerning, and yet I waste a tremendous amount of time, sometimes looking at emails, sometimes looking at text messages, and trying to determine, gosh, this one sounds kind of real, Oh my God, they're, shutting down my Facebook account, and then I'll talk to somebody and they're like, oh, come on, but they get better and better. And even the most recent one, I got one on my phone in regards to, unpaid tolls. And hopefully you all know about that. But the fact is, over the years, we have received those in the mail where we've had children that were driving through those areas. So we got things that were legitimate. So sometimes it can be hard to determine what are actually legitimate and what is, not. So what are some of the best practices that you recommend to older adults so that they can monitor their finances for any unusual or fraudulent activity?
Yeah, so best practices are really just know your stuff, right? Know your accounts, know what bills are being paid, know what funds you have coming in. So check your bank accounts, your bank statements on a monthly basis. I mean, I'd argue you probably check them like once a week, because what the fraudsters are doing is they'll find that account number out there on the dark web, and they'll just start pinging random account numbers and see which ones go through. So you might have an ACH that's pulled out of your account for $5. You're like, oh, it's $5. I don't really care. What they're doing is testing, right? They're out there just casting the line, fishing a little bit. And they go, ooh, I got $5. I got a live one on this account. Now I'm going to try to hit it for $5,000, right? Yeah, that's a little more painful, that $5,000. So that's one of the things that we recommend. Set up alerts. So if you get login alerts, so we're all in Michigan here, and if you get a login alert that comes out of California, it means your information has been compromised. Somebody's logging into your account. Or alerts that if dollar amounts leave your account, you're going to get alert for this, right? Or spending alerts. So there was your debit card was run at this said store for $500. You had an alert set for anything over $200. Those alerts are good. It keeps us on top of our information. Shred important information. So we're still getting a lot of mail these days, right? Unfortunately, the mailmen still keep coming, but it has important information on there. It could be just partial. It could be your first name, last name. It could have an address on there. Some of them could include maybe the partial social security number or a partial account number. Shred that stuff. Because what the fraudsters are doing is they're getting pieces and parts of that, and they're putting a puzzle together. They're painting a puzzle of each one of you individually with your account numbers, your social security numbers, everything to access your online in your funds. Secure your personal information. So again, this kind of goes hand in hand with shredding. Consult trusted advisors. So the folks that are on the table and on the stage up here. So consult your attorneys, your CPAs, your financial planners. Work with them. Make sure that they understand what your directives are and what you want to do. So when that random directive comes into Sherry, it says, hey Sherry, I'm changing things up and I want to send $20,000 over to here. So Sherry's going, well, yeah, was that Beverly that got a hold of me or was it not? So set up, trusted relationships. So then Sherry knows who to contact to call the number. She's not just going to take a random email or text message to move that money. Be cautious with unsolicited offers. If you're not actively out there looking for something, somebody just comes to you, put on your cautious lens. Scrutinize everything they're telling you. Even if it's a family member, because family members will scam you. Unfortunately, that's the day and age we live in. Where there's some family members that we know. That's Bill's son. Well, Bill's son's going to scam you, right? So just watch out for that kind of stuff. Register on the do not call list. We know that all doesn't work that great, but you have to re-register your phone number every year, so keep that on there. One thing I want to mention about that is kind of one of the other questions is, an example of a scam that just really kind of bugs me and that is easy to stop is, does everybody get these text messages where it's something important like, hey, I left the soup on the stove? Right? You got something silly that you'll start getting these, or it's something that's going to give you a sense of urgency. And this kind of goes again with the story. Is my mother is just the kindest soul, and she responds to these things. And I go, Mom, what are you doing? She said, well, somebody just sent a text message that there was soup on the stove, and I didn't want their house, so I let them know it. Hey, got the wrong number. I said, well, you're going to expect more of these text messages. She says, well, that's not fair. That's I shouldn't just block these numbers. What if this person? I said, Mom, when is the last time that you sent a text message to somebody that you would let into your home that wasn't already saved in your contacts? This person did not type this number in, or this person did not pull up a context. They typed this number in. They didn't fat finger and transpose a couple numbers. You are being scammed. You are being targeted. It's the same thing that goes when you get these phone calls or a voicemail that says, oh, I'm going to be late for dinner, or these things like that. Block the number, report it as scam. On every one of our phones, you can report these as scam, block the number. I encourage everybody here to block the numbers. You're not going to offend anybody. Trust me. All you're going to do is offend some scammers, and that's okay with me.
Okay, a couple things. One, I want to do a shout out to Sherry does an amazing shredding event every single year, and that's going to go on. What's the date of that, Sherry?
It's coming up June. Thursday, June 9th, I think. Let me look real quick, but it
Yeah. So put that on your calendars, and I'm sure just go see her because she'll have more details on that. But that is always good practice to shred everything. And then just a quick thing that we had gone through earlier in the year. I am always watching our accounts, and I started to get pinged with these DoorDash charges. And I'm like, well, that's weird. So I reach out to all my children. I'm like, hey, who's ordering DoorDash? I've never ordered DoorDash. And there's $5 and $6, and then one for like $16. And the frustrating part was then we got a new debit card. And when you have your debit card out on certain sites where it's automatic or whatever, and then you update your card, there's something in there that then they can get the new card number, and I don't really know how that goes, but I went through like 3 different new numbers because then we still got charges, and it was because it was automatically updating on some site, which was super frustrating. So can you talk about that? Is that something that you're aware of?
Yeah, the data leaks, what you're referring to is you have sites out there that they store your information, so like Jimmy John's or Papa John's Pizza was the most, I guess, recent prevalent one, but we had, you go to Jimmy John's and you want to order a pizza, they ask for some account information. Well, I order Jimmy John's once every 2 weeks. I don't want to retype this in, so I'm going to load in my bank account information to that. So it's automatic, right? Papa John's gets a breach, meaning that like somebody hacked into their system, stole all the client data, all client information, including a bank account numbers, credit card numbers, like all the good stuff that goes with that. So what they're doing is they're taking that information, and whether it's login information or those account numbers, and they're hitting them and seeing if they can get money out of that. So unfortunately, you had somebody's getting free DoorDash from your account for a while, and the recommendation of that would be to shut down the actual account itself and open a new account. Because that account number is out there, it's been compromised. That debit card number that's tied to that, those are, we cycle through those quite a bit, right? The fraudsters, they tend to get those, we cycle through and replace them. But those account numbers, get a new one on that.
So before we head into questions, I'm going to just say, do you have any personal stories of anyone that you've worked with that you can share with this group that was particularly compelling?
Unfortunately, there's because cases are still active and going on. But there are several. One of them that you had mentioned in here was that we had talked about was the grandmother situation, or the grandchild situation who's been kidnapped or who has been in a car accident. Anybody heard about the car accident? Okay, everybody knows about that. The recent twist to that was before, so if you don't know, so it would be, hey grandma, this is Billy, I was in a terrible car accident, somebody was injured, I need you to speak to my attorney. And then Charles would get on the phone pretending to be an attorney. He'd get on the phone and say, hey, Mrs. Beverly, yes, this is Billy's attorney, he's been in a terrible car accident, the judge is willing to post bail for $30,000, are you able to help out? We'd like to keep this, because of your family status in the community, we want to keep this, kind of low key. So I'd like you to, not tell anybody about this. Okay, and so they play along. So they would go to the bank and they take out as much as they could in cash, and go to the other bank and take money. And so, or they would wire that money. Historically, what they would do is just wire that money and transfer it electronically. Now, what the fraudsters are having them do is take the cash out, and then they're given a drop spot location to put this money in. So you're talking $30,000 in a 75-year-old woman's purse. Right? Well, then they're calling and saying, oh, by the way, we have somebody in your area from the bail bondsman. Can they just swing by your house and pick this up? So you're a 75-year-old woman in the country living alone, and somebody is coming over to your house to pick up $30,000 in cash. That makes me uneasy, right? These folks were saying, oh, by the way, I might have COVID, so I'll be wearing a mask. They have sunglasses on and they have, a hat pulled down tight. They come in, they give them a signed hand receipt for the $30,000 in cash and said, your grandson will be released as far as we can tell, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. No, they didn't stop there. They continue to do this, and well, the judge upped the bail, upped the bond. So these have happened, I said it was like 2 months ago here in Michigan, where it happened enough times where the state police were involved that I believe they have a suspect that they're going after. But those are the kind of scary stories where it's like, to me personally, when they're showing up to your house, it's one thing when they're doing this stuff electronically. When they're showing up to your house, that's terrifying to me.
Well, I think the thing that gets me is the fact that you would think that some of these sound so hokey and unbelievable that it would be really easy to spot. But we've been amazed in talking with our friends we've had, a couple situations where grown children really fell for things that they said it was so real. These people were so convincing. And these are very, very smart people that fell through these things. So lastly, a lot of it I hear does go unreported simply because people are embarrassed. They feel like they should have known better, or if there was a situation where something was done by a family member. So what would you tell somebody that maybe something's happened to them and they just feel so bad about reporting it?
Yeah, so one thing we encourage folks is, as a fraud response officer, I can't chase down the bad guys and try to get your money back unless I know it happened, right? So we encourage folks to report this to their bank. So if it's on their bank account, something's fishy on your bank account, call your bank. Call the number you know that you've been dealing with, or go into the branch and talk to them, right? But then from that, big picture, we as a country need to start reporting this stuff. So there's a couple websites. The FBI runs a website called ic3.gov, just India Charlie, the number 3.gov. That's run by the FBI, and what they really focus on cyber crimes and internet-related crimes. But then there's another one we ask people to go to. So it's reportfraud.ftc.gov. I apologize for not getting these in the slides, but and that's really more of a broader range of frauds and scams. So we ask you to report those, and we encourage this, number one. So you've been scammed, you got taken for a couple $1,000s. Guess what? You multiply that by 100. That same fraudster is doing this 100 different times, right? We're funding evil. We're funding that terrorism organization. We're funding things that we really don't want to be funding, and you just lost money too. So let's stop this from happening to other folks and start the reporting process. It's super easy. If you're at any time you do fall victim of a scam or something like this, and you need help filling this out, go into your local branch, your local bank that you deal with, and they can help you fill this stuff out.